Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar, and China doesn't exactly like gamers that much, does it? In the last couple days you probably heard that their government is banning online video games. And now there's been a lot of misinformation flowing around and there's an entire story to get down to the bottom of, but China has a long history about basically neutering anyone when they get a bit too powerful. See, the story over here is incredibly complicated, so we gotta start from the very beginning. Now, China is a country that has a crap ton of gamers, probably more gamers than any other country combined, okay? Simply due to the fact that they have one of the largest populations and they're getting pretty rich as the time goes on. Now, in China, there's a big difference between what we do as video gaming and what they do as video gaming. I guess to clarify it, we have a lot of PCs and consoles, and that's pretty much what it comes down to. We have a lot of mobile gamers, but China basically takes our mobile gamers and craps all over them, okay? Full goatsy style, full one-man, one-jar nonsense. To understand, in China, mobile gaming is one of the strongest forms of gaming that can ever exist. A lot more people own a smartphone, and therefore have a lot more access to the free-to-play stuff that we basically dip our toes into. Now, to understand, big games in China include stuff like PUBG, include stuff like Genshin Impact, for instance. A lot of those free-to-play games that we look at now that have really good quality attached to them come to China, okay? That's where they're originating from. And that's what a lot of people play. It's not just China. Back home in India, literally everyone I know has embraced PUBG. It's basically a cultural phenomenon. On mobile, not the PC version, the mobile version. So you might want to understand that this is what the country now considers to be spiritual opium. Okay, I'm not even kidding with you. That's an actual term that was used, all right? So to understand what the Chinese government wants to do is crack down on video game addiction. Now, video game addiction is, like anything, a reality, okay? Addictions happen, okay? People get addicted to a lot of nonsense, all right? Some people get addicted to life. Some people get addicted to video games. Video gaming addiction is basically, in this case, like anybody that spends an exorbitant amount of time per day on a hobby that basically consumes their entire life. It prevents them from doing anything else. You understand, right? I don't have to explain addictions to you. Now, basically, the government over there, the National Press and Publication Administration, which is the NPPA, has decided to jump in and crack down and limit the online gaming to, get this, 3 hours a week. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, you are allowed to play between the hour of 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Yes, you literally have a specific time slot per day that underage people can sign in and play. Now, this doesn't mean that anybody, over 18, you can game all you want. This is only for the kiddies. Now, it's interesting in China because I was reading in this country that a lot of kids already bypass this by using a relative's ID. Like, I've heard in cases people use their grandmother's ID literally to sign up to some of these games, and they're able to play. So it's not that there aren't circumventions for this kind of stuff. It's just now they've kind of tightened the grip, if you will. Because, again, they don't want kids touching spiritual opium. So initially, I thought, according to how everyone was reporting this, man, they're really turning down video games, and that's just simply not true. Nobody can. It's not like you can't go to China and download good games like the original Deus Ex or Stardew Valley. Or, I don't know, GTA 5. Is GTA 5 banned? I'm not sure. But you can download a lot of single-player games and run them on your computer. And there's no, built-in DRM that's preventing you from playing those video games. In fact, there's nothing stopping you from taking a PlayStation 5, 4, Xbox One, Series X, whatever you want to call it, connecting it to a wall outlet in China and playing the games off of it. So this is strictly for the online games, the aspect that a lot of these Asian countries can control. If you ever wonder how controlled they are, seriously, if you go to South Korea, if you look at some South Korean gaming servers, from what my experience is, you need IDs to connect to it. Same with China. When I was trying to play COD Mobile for a video, I had to literally come up with fake identifying information to even sign up to Tencent servers, then play the game. So they definitely have a higher grip, a higher lockdown on a lot of these mobile games and online games in their country. Now, speaking of Tencent and the idea of video games being spiritual opium, one such game that was kind of brought into the mention was Honor of Kings. And if you look at some of the screenshots, it's basically League of Legends, all right? Like, I'll be honest with you, Chief. I think they just worked a deal with Riot to take their game assets and deploy them in China. That literally just looks like League of Legends. Anyways, it's a mobile game that's like a MOBA for the handset devices, and they're pretty popular these days. So these guys got brought up into spiritual opium. So it really made me realize that I think a lot of this is kind of targeting the fact that some of these games have incredibly predatory mechanics. Things like loot box, gotcha games, which basically are fluffed up story-based casinos, if you will. Now, at the end of the day, I don't have an issue with people playing these titles, but I can understand from a perspective that people are getting addicted to it, especially younger children. Like, at the end of the day, young kids are exposed to gambling at a very young age with free-to-play titles. Some free-to-play titles, not all. Now, I can understand this level of, save the kids type stuff, but usually when it comes to regulation and saving the kids, that usually is like that usually is just scratching the surface. If you really wanted to prevent children from like getting exposed to this kind of stuff, you would basically put an 18 plus rating on a lot of these games and call it a day. Don't sign on until you hit 18 and above, because it's not like they're banning these games outright. If you're over the age of 18, you can still actually play these games, as far as I understand, pretty uninterrupted. And again, it's a weird mixed signal to me. To be honest with you, a lot of these bans really come across as a way for China to tighten the grip on a lot of these ever large growing tech companies. If you looked at how big companies like Alibaba Group, Ant Group have grown up, or Tencent, the picture starts to clear itself up a little bit. Now, these companies will tell you that this kind of regulation doesn't really affect them all too hard, but I was looking into like the changes and like how net worths were going in amongst some of these billionaires. Now, these are Chinese billionaires, and the name at the top is Jack Ma. This comes from Bloomberg, who was telling us that on November the 2nd, they were worth like $61 billion. That's a lot of money. And on August 3rd, they ended up losing $13.2 billion, so $47 billion in their value. Now, the name underneath it is Pony Ma, and they're not related as far as I know, but Pony Ma is currently the CEO and chairman of Tencent. These are two companies that have drawn the ire of regulators in the country all abroad for various reasons, and he's also seen a similar drop in value. So again, these people, as much as they'll tell you they're not targeted, they definitely are pretty much under the gun. And anytime regulations like this kick in, you're definitely going to have an issue with how your company moves on forward. Now, a lot of these people's, net worth comes from the fact that they have stock in these companies. Now, Tencent, who runs some of these large gaming divisions in the world, will tell you they're not really affected. But this regulation does end up affecting you. You will lose money. This is basically neutering an individual. People will forget, but like several months ago, Jack Ma, who's basically like the Jeff Bezos of China, he runs Alibaba, okay? Like the biggest drop shipping name in the business. That guy got completely ass-reamed because he tried to basically go up against the government. He tried launching an IPO around the world, which was said to be one of the biggest releases in the world, ended up at the very last minute being delisted and fucked over by the government. And this was one of the largest mistakes that this guy could have done. He flew too close to the moon, if you will, because what had happened was he decided to go public, make his company larger than it ever could have been. And while it would have worked, because in China you have a crap ton of regulation and the state basically controlling everything, he was stopped at the last minute, and the dude it basically disappeared for months on end, which is insane. You would think that a billionaire, like a tech god over there, wouldn't just disappear off the face of the earth. But he very quickly learned that if you go up against the government in any capacity, you're only stifling yourself in the long run. So when I look at this gaming ban, I can think that there's a much larger ulterior motive, and the ulterior motive is to rein in a lot of their big emerging tech companies. Gaming is not really at a threat in China, okay? People are gaming just like they were for however long in the country. Yes, underneath regulations. Yes, underneath a lot of strict scrutiny, for sure. This is honestly worse. This is a bad situation. It's turning that, few hours of online gaming into almost no hours of online gaming. And whatever side you stand stand on, something that I generally don't agree with is a crap ton of regulation from any government. I think that controlling anybody's activities to this extent is a little authoritarian, and it shouldn't be something that we should support in any capacity. But when you look at the ulterior motive, I think a lot of the situation regarding around this comes into reining in some of these massive companies. These companies that have extended their reach to every part of the world. If you look at how much Tencent holds in every other country, the picture starts to clear itself. These people are dominating the world through buying a crap ton of assets in other countries. And because of how much they're dominating the world, they've now become sort of polarizing figures amongst the Chinese state government, because now they realize that they're not the only ones that have all the power. Now they're beginning to share the power with some of these multi-billion-dollar tech conglomerates that dominate the world. And this is sort of a last-ditch effort to really control that in. How effective it is, we'll find out in the years to come. But ladies and gentlemen, that was a Chinese video game ban, if you will. Not really a ban, more of a even tighter limitation on playing online video games. So there's a lot of sides to this angle. You know, you'll hear video game addiction, but I think the reality of it is I don't think the government really wants to keep sharing power anymore. And I think all of these last-ditch efforts in the last 6 months that I've been noticing through the news start to prove it. So yeah, that's it. This is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.